All right, so one of the most unglamorous, unfun parts about being a photographer, or videographer, or content creator is storage. It's something that we have to have, but I've never met somebody that was excited about spending money to buy storage. But we need it. We need to use it to work from. We need to have backups and archives and all those sorts of things. So it's a necessary part of being a content creator, but it's just not fun. Now, in this video, I really want to talk about my decision and my process to convert all of my raw images to DNG. So I really want to dive into my process, my archiving, my backup process, all of that kind of stuff, and really what got me to the point of even thinking about this in the first place. Now, this video is sponsored by Glyph, and they sent me this nice, rugged 16 gigabyte hard drive, which I'm going to talk about this a little bit later in the video. And I really want to talk about how this is going to fit into my workflow. And it's filling a piece that is missing and is going to be nice. So I'm going to tap into this in just a moment. But first, I want to talk about why I even decided to do the DNG thing. Now, my backup system, let me talk about that first. I have everything backed up on 4 separate drives. So all of my photo, all of my video files, they're all backed up on 4 separate drives. And so I noticed a few weeks back that I only had 38 gigabytes of free space on my photo drive. Now, all of my photo drives are 4 terabyte drives. I keep every raw file. I've kept every raw file from when I first got my DSLR camera in 2013. I keep everything. I'm one of those photographers. I don't just keep the raw files that I edit or deliver. I keep everything once I call through them. It's just what I do. I have separation anxiety. I can't let them go. So I realized that I only had 38 gigs, but I noticed on my SSD drives, which I work from SSD drives until I can, move everything to my archive drives. I noticed that I had like 100 and something gigs of photos that needed to be archived. Now, I just recently spent $1,000, probably like 3 or 4 months ago, buying 4 terabyte drives for my video, because I quickly ran out of space for video once I really started getting heavy into video, probably like 8 months ago. So I was sitting there and I'm just like, I don't feel like buying more drives. Now, mind you, my photo drives were already 4 terabytes. So I either would have had to bought like a 6 or 8 terabyte, 4, 6 or 8 terabyte drives, or, bought like 4 2 terabyte drives. Then I've got, some pictures on this drive, some pictures on that drive. Didn't really want to do that. Not right now anyway. Okay. I didn't like the thought of spending money to buy hard drives right now. So I thought about DNG files. Now, this is something that I had researched a couple of years back, and I never really converted it because in my mind, I was just like, I don't want to not have the capability of having my raw files. Like, I keep those raw files for a reason. And so I didn't dive too deep into DNGs, but at that time I was just like, I don't think I want to do that, because even if it's the same, it's not the same, yada, yada. But fast forward to now, I'm just like, okay, I need a way to save space. So I started looking into converting raw to DNGs, and I really wanted to look at the cons of doing so, because I knew that there was some space savings, but I really wanted to look at the cons. Is there any difference in the quality? Is there any difference in editing? What am I losing by converting to a DNG? Now, I'm not gonna dive super deep into that. If you want to research it, you can research it. But what I can tell you is there really isn't any cons, to be quite honest. I compared raw files to the DNGs once I converted them. They looked exactly the same in Lightroom. They edited exactly the same in Lightroom. I was able to push and pull the exposure and colors exactly the same. It kept the color profiles. There really was no difference whatsoever. It functioned and acted exactly like the Canon raw files. So at that point, I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let me look into what kind of savings I can get. Now, when I started doing the research, the numbers I was getting was between 10 and 20% savings of DNG versus raw, depending upon how much you compressed it. You actually can compress the DNGs quite a bit. I don't know if that's the right word, because I don't know if it's compressing it, but there's options in there where you definitely can have the sizes a lot smaller if you want to, sacrifice, I'm assuming, like quality or resolution or something like that. So I decided I definitely didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep all of the resolution and all of the detail. And so what I can tell you is that My older raw files definitely saw a bigger reduction in size than the newer. So if you're a Canon shooter, my CR2 files on average, those were about 20 to 25% smaller. The D&Gs were 20 to 25% smaller than the Canon RAW files. The CR3 files, which is their current version iteration of the RAW files, those saw roughly between a 10 to 15, really like my 2025 and 2024 images, really like 10%, 8%. So it wasn't as big of a savings, but it was still a savings. So another thing that I was worried about was time, because before I did the conversion, I had 3.5 terabytes of RAW files. 3.5 terabytes of RAW and some JPEG, which I'm gonna touch on that in just a minute, okay? So I was just thinking, like, how long is this gonna take? Now again, I'm a very particular person how I like to do things, and I'm thinking, okay, if this takes a long time, that means I gotta have my computer on and running for a long time, and I did not like the idea of that. So I was just like, I don't know if this is gonna work. So I actually tried to use my older laptop, but I couldn't get the newest version of Adobe DNG converter, which is what I use to do these conversions. And so I didn't want to use an older version because I'm just like, that might mess something up. So I had to use my M1. To my surprise, it was extremely fast. Extremely fast. I mean, it converts it'll convert 500 RAW files in, a minute or two. I mean, it was very fast. So it didn't take a lot of time at all. So in terms of the space that I saved, I went from having 38 gigs on my drive. Once I did the conversion and I deleted all my JPEGs, so I said I was gonna touch on that. So there isn't anything crazy with that. I just decided to get rid of all my JPEGs. I don't shoot raw JPEG anymore. I did for probably like 2.5 years. And I realized I never used the JPEGs ever. I still would edit the raw file and do what I had to do. I never used the JPEGs. So I stopped doing that, but I never deleted the JPEGs that I had in my archive. So I started there first. I got rid of all of my JPEGs, and that saved me 200 gigs of space just in deleting all of my JPEGs. Now, mind you, my settings for JPEGs was at the highest for my camera. Probably didn't need to do that, but it is what I did. So I saved a little under 200 gigs of space just in getting rid of the JPEGs. Now, in terms of converting to DNG, I got an additional 450 gigs of space saved by converting all of my RAW files to DNG files. So altogether, between getting rid of the JPEGs and converting to DNG, I went from 38 gigs of free space to 668 gigs of free space. So that definitely bought me some time, so now, I probably won't have to buy new drives until, summertime, maybe even fall time. And I have exclusively been working with DNGs ever since I did the conversion, which I did the conversion probably about a month ago at this point, and I have not encountered any issues whatsoever. Now, I do want to be very clear and transparent. I'm not saying that there is no difference in the files. There might be some sort of quality loss or image degradation or something of the sort. There very well could be. I don't know that for 100% certainty, but what I can say for me in my real world use, there's been no difference. I have not experienced any differences whatsoever. The images look fine, they edit fine, they export fine, they archive fine. I have not had any issues whatsoever. So that's been a great process for me. So again, I use the Adobe DNG converter mainly because I use Adobe products. So that's just the one that I went with. I do know that there's other ones out there. And I had my settings in a way to where it kept everything minimal. So I did not include any previews, and I don't remember what all of the options were, but I kept my settings pretty minimal. So that process was great. Now, when Glyph reached out to me, it came at a good time because it actually came around the time when I was having this dilemma. Now, I knew that this in and of itself was not going to be a solution for that, but I knew that this was going to fit something differently. Now, Glyph is a company, a storage company. They've been around for a long time. They're very reputable in the industry. Their products are built very well, very tough. Their warranty is really good. So I was very excited when they reached out to me. So they sent me their Blackbox Pro. This is the 16 terabyte version. It's their rugged drive. And how this is going to fit into my workflow and the reason why I was super excited about this. Now, going back to how I said I have everything, you know, I have 4 drives for video and photos and music, everything, like everything is backed up. The problem is that each thing is on its own drive. So my videos are on a drive, my photos is on a drive, my music is on a drive, and then just my day-to-day data is on a drive. So all of these things are on separate drives. So if I'm working on a video, I'm working on a project and I need video and I need photo and I need this document, I've got to plug in 3 separate drives to be able to get all of that data. And I'm using drives that are not fast at all. I mean, for the most part, I use a lot of internal, you know, the drives that you put into like a desktop PC. I use those because they're cheap. And for archiving, it's not really something that I use on a consistent basis. So I don't need something that's portable. I don't need something that's small. I don't need something that is built in any kind of way that's going to increase the cost. And so it is extremely cumbersome to get all of those drives out to get the information that I need, first of all. Second of all, the drives are slow, okay? This is an enterprise drive. This is a regular hard drive. This is not an SSD. Glyph, they do have SSDs, but this is not an SSD. But this has a 7,200 RPM spin. Most of my drives are 5,400. So they're very slow. And when you have, you know, 2, 3, 4 terabytes of data on that drive, trying to get what you need, it's annoyingly slow, okay? So this is going to work out very well for me because this is going to allow me to have a version of all of those drives on one drive so that when I'm working on a project, I can plug this in. I have access to everything that I need to have access to, and it's just going to make the process so much easier. I appreciate the build on this thing. Like, this thing is a tank. This is a desktop drive, okay? There's nothing portable about this. This is definitely meant to be in your office, you know, a part of your setup. It's not designed to be mobile. It's easy to carry it around. It's easy to carry it, but it is big, it is heavy. So yeah, I appreciate Glyph for sending this out. I'm excited to get this to be a part of my workflow. You know, if you have any questions on converting your raw files to DNG, or if you've had any experiences with it that, you know, you would want to share with somebody that may be watching this video, by all means, feel free to put those in the comments because I just did this. There could be some sort of negative, some random rogue type of negative that, you know, it may be useful for someone to know, and maybe it'll impact them more than it would impact me. So definitely feel free to go down to the comments and throw that in there. If you are interested in picking up one of these drives, I have a link in the description to this particular product and just a link in general to Glyph. As I mentioned, they've been around for a long time. They're one of the leaders in this space. They have rugged hard drives. They have NAS systems. They have NAS, and what's the other one? So they have network and I think it's DAS. Desktop local. So they have ones where you can connect to a network, ones where you can't. They have SSDs. So they kind of have everything you need. Now, I'll definitely say they're not going to be the cheapest option. And when you get something like an enterprise level drive that's meant to be used on a consistent basis and, you know, has your 7,200 RPM spin speed, you're going to pay a little bit more for that. But depending upon what it is you're doing and the importance of functionality and reliability, you know, your money goes where it goes and you spend what you need to spend to get what you need. So thank you, Glyph, for sending this out. I appreciate you watching this video. I'll catch you on the next one.